Whenever a critic of the religion of Islam voices his or her concerns regarding the contents of Islamic texts or the beliefs and activities of individual Muslims around the world, they are inevitably met with the limp-dicked retort, "Are you saying that you're against all Muslims? Are you blaming all Muslims? Are you saying all Muslims are terrorists with designs on taking over the world?"
The thing that Sam Harris and a lot of Sam Harris supporters would say is, no, we're not saying all Muslims. We're not saying all Muslims. We're not saying all Muslims. And I don't know when it happened, but eventually something switched. Well, where all of a sudden, and I'm not saying Sam Harris is saying this, although he kind of has, his supporters certainly do, where they're like, no, it's all Muslims. And they're unapologetic about it.
These militant Islamic groups like Hamas, like Hezbollah, like the Taliban have to be dealt with, but it doesn't actually help us to deal with them when instead of talking about rational conflicts, rational criticisms of a particular religion, we instead so easily slip into bigotry by simply painting everyone with a single brush, as we have been doing.
As a Muslim, as a representative of Islam, I would consider myself an ambassador for Islam, a believer in Islam, a follower of Islam and its prophet. So in that capacity, let me begin by apologizing to Anne-Marie for the Bali bombings. I apologize for the role of my religion and me and my people, for the killing of Theo van Gogh, for 7/7. Yes, that was all of us.
That's just self-pitying shit.
Right. That is a germ there, though, isn't it?
No, it sucks cock. It sucks cock so deep. The bell end's wearing your appendix as a little hat.
It's such a pathetic point to make in practically every instance, and this accusation has become something of a mantra for the regressive left. They bleat it like sheep at anyone in an attempt to derail the conversation, strawman their opponents, and or divert the spotlight away from the issues that need to be addressed and onto the individual who wishes to address them. Their itchy trigger fingers are poised, ready to fire the word bigot, Islamophobe, and even racist at those, in their estimation, guilty of not applying enough nuance.
He didn't hear the nuance, he heard Muslims are the bad guys, yes. Right?
I just want to make sure that you have a nuanced reading of the very rich Islamic tradition that has its gangsters and has its magnificent people.
Well,
It's a nuanced, complex issue. It's way more nuanced than that. So please don't fall victim to that very simplistic way of thinking.
This is your thing, isn't it? Everything has to be an absolute. Everything has to be black and white. You know, I love you, fuck off. There are lots of shades of grey, you know?
Oh, I know that. I'm looking at 15 of them right now.
I felt like tackling this, primarily for my own sake. It will make no difference, of course. They'll carry on doing it, and I think that Douglas Murray had a point when he mused that it's not actually worth being upset by people who are fundamentally insincere in their insults. It will, however, allow me to exercise some demons, and it may even have a small effect for the good somewhere. Who knows? So, am I against all Muslims?
Drum roll, please. Drum roll.
Of course I am. But it's nuanced. First of all, what is a Muslim? A Muslim is an adherent to the religion of Islam in some form or another. Now, based on my reading of the Quran, large sections of the Hadith, and the biography of Muhammad, Islam is demonstrably a wicked religion. It is cruel, intolerant, founded on imperialism and jihad.
It's gross, it's racist.
Yeah, it's that as well. Good thinking, Batman. It's all of these things. I hate Islam. Now, I am perfectly capable of appreciating that not all Muslims deserve to be hated in the same way as the religion does. Many of them don't even understand their own religion for a start and live relatively peacefully as a result. Others, who may be more thoughtful, are thankfully so overcome by their sense of humanity that they run from the reality of their religion and decide to interpret it in a different way. Thus, it's important that we define what we mean by against Muslims. My attitude towards individuals depends entirely on what they personally believe and how that belief manifests. Let's go through it. There are some Muslims who I would classify as decent, secular people who share Western values of tolerance, freedom of expression, and pluralism. They defend many, if not all, liberal principles, and yet they adhere to some watered-down interpretation of Islam, give credence to certain teachings of Muhammad, and believe in the supernatural in some shape or form. It's all a bit vague, really. Hitchens used to call it cafeteria religion. You pick what tastes nice and throw out the slop. So, am I against these people? Well, yeah. As far as their Islamic beliefs go, of course I am. I'm an atheist. That's what being an atheist means. I think they're dead wrong. They are good people, in many ways, but even though they hold but a benign strain of the virus, it's a strain of the virus nonetheless. An important point to remember, though, is that they are not trying to force their religion on anyone else. They live and let live, basically. And so, although I may try and change their minds, I may argue with them, at a dinner party I felt like ruining, I completely acknowledge that they are not affecting the way I live my life, and they are on my side in terms of the wider civilizational struggle against those Muslims seeking to impose Islam on everybody else. Here's where I would insert a small proviso, however. I believe that given the strength and persistence of militant Islam throughout the world, anyone identifying themselves as a Muslim, even a secular, liberal Muslim, has a responsibility to oppose our enemies who report to speak in their name. Of course, I wouldn't dream of blaming liberal Muslims for the actions of jihadists. That would be insane and morally incorrect. I do, however, expect anyone calling themselves a liberal or a moderate to join me in the fight for civilization.
Muslims, and I'm really glad with what you said and the way that you view your faith, but unfortunately there are many, many others who don't, and they're causing some problems in the world today. And I think it's incredibly helpful if Muslims like you and me own that, are honest about it, say, yes, there's a challenge we have here, and let's open up that debate.
A second kind of Muslim we can identify is a fundamentalist. These Muslims adhere to certain literal interpretations of Islamic scripture, thereby committing themselves to highly illiberal beliefs. They may not wish to impose Islam on non-Muslims. They will, however, hold many barbaric opinions about women, homosexuals, Jews, apostates that are at direct odds with Western culture. For example, if we take the most moderate majority Muslim country, Turkey, we can see that most of these people hold egregious opinions about morality. 85% of the country think that homosexuality is a sin. 85% of the country is homophobic. 65% of the country is misogynist, proclaiming that a wife must always obey her husband. And 15% of Muslims in Turkey think that suicide bombing targeting non-combatants can be justified. Turkey is petitioning to join the EU, by the way. They are arguably the most moderate Muslim country, by the way. I wouldn't check the figures for the other Muslim majority countries around the world late at night. You won't get to sleep. Fundamentalist Muslims must modernize. They must grow up and stop stultifying the minds of their children with such backward bullshit. These beliefs are unacceptable, and fuck the people who hold to them. They need to be carefully observed to ensure they don't radicalize further, re-educated if possible, and kept at a distance from civilized societies until they adopt more progressive attitudes. If you think that your Islamic beliefs should take precedent over science, reason, and liberal morality, I have nothing but contempt for you.
In 2013, Pew Research released a comprehensive study based on interviews with thousands of Muslims in 39 countries. It reported that in countries like Afghanistan, Egypt, and Jordan, the vast majority of Muslims surveyed, between 79 to 86%, believe that those who leave the Muslim faith should be executed. Do you know anyone who has left their faith? Do you think they should be executed? Do you think that that's a radical belief? If we were to take the average from all the Muslims surveyed around the world, we end up with an average of 27% who believe that apostates should be executed. 27% of those surveyed, that equals 237 million people.
In my opinion, Islamists are the first group of Muslims we've talked about who actually understand their religion and the tradition of their religion. These are people who are politically motivated to establish a global caliphate ruled under the Sharia. This would apply to all Muslims, and non-Muslims would be forced to convert or possibly live as a dhimmi, be they people of the book. Islamists work within the system and attempt to gain political power through fairly legitimate routes, as the Muslim Brotherhood did in Egypt, for example. Islamists don't necessarily use violence, although they will often fund those who do, and sometimes advocate violence against Muslims and non-Muslims alike. Every civilized human being should despise these people. They are attempting to destroy modern culture and return humanity to the 7th century. They are evil, and I have no problem in using that word to describe them. We should be aggressively hostile towards Islamists and let them know we are their ideological enemies. If they take power, as they have done in certain countries around the world, every effort should be made to break ties with that country and punish it economically. If such countries can be shown to be actively funding terrorists, then, depending on the circumstances, I would certainly advocate military action. These people must be stopped, ideally through the use of soft power, but make no mistake, we are against them.
So definitely, before the Day of Judgment, even America and Britain and China and Russia will be under the authority of the Muslims. This is a promise of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Indeed, there are many mubashirat, much good news which is to come. In one narration, the Prophet said, the Day of Judgment will not come until a group of my ummah conquer Rome. In another narration, he said, the Day of Judgment will not come until a group of my ummah conquer the White House. And there are many White Houses, and obviously one still standing at the moment in Washington.
Jihadists are Islamists who use violence to achieve their aims. We're now talking about ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, etc., etc. They wage bloody jihad against their enemies, as Muhammad did, and they are utterly convinced of paradise. Jihadists are prepared to die in defense of the faith, and the only rational response is to oblige them. They are actively killing in the name of Islam. They will not stop until they are stopped with brutal and merciless determination. They are the Nazis of our time. There is nothing to discuss with them. We are the victims of their actions. Are we against these people? Are we against these Muslims? Does a bear shit in the woods?
Not appear that there's any kind of an effort up there yet. Now remember, oh my God.
My God.
That looks like a second plane.
I
did not see a plane go in. That just exploded.
We just saw another plane coming in from the side.
You did. That was out of
yes, and that's the second explosion. You could see the plane come in just from the right-hand side of the screen.
As you can see, I am against all Muslims. I do have problems with all Muslims. I do criticize all Muslims. But that criticism is on a spectrum. There is a range of responses to people based on their level of religious derangement. To say you're against Muslims doesn't mean you advocate putting them all in camps and turning on the gas, as some regressive asshats would have you believe. As I mentioned, I judge people as individuals based on what they think and how they behave. It doesn't make me a bigot, it makes me the opposite. I'm being incredibly specific. I'm happy to perform as deep an analysis as possible. A simple example. A fundamentalist who only believes that homosexuality is immoral is objectively better than one who believes homosexuality is immoral and women are the property of men. I'm incredibly nuanced, as is every serious critic of Islam and of Muslims. My attitudes fit the situation to a T. For example, here's me metaphorically interacting with a secular, liberal Muslim.
That's lunch. 1 hour. Hey, let's go to that Thai joint we used to go to. Remember you used to get that pad Thai with the noodles?
A fundamentalist Muslim.
Did I not clearly explain the circle of trust to you, Greg?
Yeah, I think I got it.
Then is there something you want to tell me?
I don't think so.
All right, now look, Fokker. I'm a patient man. That's what 19 months in a Vietnamese prison camp will do to you. But I will be watching you, studying your every move. And if I find that you are trying to corrupt my firstborn child, I will bring you down, baby. I will bring you down to Chinatown.
An Islamist?
Problem? Yeah, I got a problem. I run rat fucks like you, okay? I don't like them. Blow me. Why the fuck were your guys following me?
That's internal investigations business. Fucking piece of shit!
Fuck off.
And finally, jihadists. See? Nuance.